Are they talking Bronny James? The Lakers, of course, on the clock next. And I'm going to keep an eye out here for where this pick comes through, see what's going on. But the clock is going down, Noah. We were just joking about it, but it is possible. Are they calling the Lakers right now and saying, we're going to take Bronny, give us a second-round pick? I can't think of anything else that would be holding them up here.
I don't know. This is the first pick that Woj hasn't had like 2 minutes before the clock expired. So
Right.
I'm here refreshing
they are
Twitter.
down to the wire, and the pick is in, according to ESPN. So we should know within
Anton
moments
Watson.
here. Anton
No
Watson.
Bronny hostage.
So not a player I'm super familiar with here as we try to pull him up. Celtics, of course, going with another veteran player. So 24 years old almost. Guy from Gonzaga. This is a guy you looked at.
This is the shades of old Al Horford guy.
Right. So they go with a 6'8" rim finisher, as Kevin O'Connor notes here. Flashes of shooting potential, he says, and a good decision maker who limits his mistakes. Versatile defensively, talented rim protector with feel, fundamentals, and length, but lacks creation ability, and a bit undersized as a rim protector here. So a big with a little bit of shooting touch, a guy who's a little bit undersized, and that's a fun comparison, right? What is it? Old Al Horford?
I love that.
I mean, how can you be an old Al Horford?
I mean,
Horford's about as old as it gets.
No, but I think it's just saying that it's the Al Horford we have today is what this guy's shades are.
Okay.
Not Al Horford in his prime.
Okay.
You know?
So a
like
little
if you
bit
said
of
Al
passing.
Horford, that's like all-star Al Horford, but we're talking 38, 39 Al Horford.
So a little bit of passing, a little bit of shooting. He shot 41% from the field last year. So, again, it's hard to sit here and say, I don't love this pick, because there's nothing here. I mean, we were scrambling for names as they started flying off the board. Enrique Freeman's a guy I liked. Cam Christie, another shooter, if you want to add him to the mix. I'd have to imagine he was going to be on a two-way deal, I'd have to say. And, of course, the Lakers are on the pick right now, so Bronny James is almost certainly going to be going next here. But Anton Watson, the senior from Gonzaga, is almost certainly the Celtics pick here at second round. That's all the reporting that's out there. And
I think
it's now announced on TV as well. So interesting pick. Not really a guy who's on my radar. Definitely an older guy. Is there any development opportunity here? You have to wonder when you're picking a guy who's almost 24 years at this point. So Celtics go with a couple older guys, and Baylor Shireman and Anton Watson. So experience, shooting ability, size, all things that they prioritize in this draft, clearly.
Yeah, and I'm always a fan of when they're prioritizing older players. I think just this team at this point, you're going to look at the draft for potentially like end of bench minutes, right? They're going to be very limited with what they can do as a second apron team. And so I like the idea of drafting guys that are more ready. They also just have enough projects on this roster. I think Jordan Walsh, Jaden Springer both kind of serve as their project guys. I don't think you want to add two project guys alongside those two. And J.D. Davison was a project guy as well, right? So I think for the last few years, you've seen them go towards youth and away from kind of the more NBA-ready guys. And just looking at age and just looking at what they've been able to do as far as on-court college production, it seems like this is a little bit of a move away from that. And I know we're excited about the Shireman pick, but in general, there's a possibility here you might see him at least. I don't think we're going to see second-round prospect much, on a repeating championship team.
Yeah, and I think it's conceivable they could have picked some other guys people liked at the spot. I know P.J. Hall was phoning around. Post went to he was a Golden State pick.
He went to Thunder. I think
Thunder, yeah. So big start flying off the board. They clearly needed a guy who can mold into the big man spot. Again, is he going to be up in Maine? Is he going to actually have an active roster spot? I would lean two-way. So it's another thing we're going to figure out tonight as the night goes on. Celtics have 3 two-way spots open. If this is one, you only have 2 left. You bring back Drew Peterson and J.D. Davison. Davison can only sign one more two-way contract at this point. So if they sign a second two-way guy tonight, and if Anton Watson's one of them, you're going to be looking at one of those guys being squeezed out. If they sign 3 two-way guys tonight, you're looking at both of those guys being gone. So that's going to be the next thing to watch for tonight, along with the Summer League team starting to take shape. Shireman, of course, going to be out there in Vegas. Jordan Walsh, Anton Watson here. Who else is going to join them? Who else did they pick up in the undrafted free agency market? And then, of course, we'll hear from Brad Stevens tonight as well. So we're getting to the end of the draft here. Bronny James, I'd imagine, is going to the Lakers right now. A lot of high-fiving in the room as we're watching on TV. So should they have considered it?
No, I think the drama was going to be a little bit for nothing. He doesn't fit what they are looking for from a positional standpoint either, and so just from that perspective, it was kind of interesting just from a rival standpoint. Like I don't know how maybe there was a creative way to maneuver that, but obviously they just steered clear in this case and just picked the player that they wanted to pick. And on the two-way piece, I would imagine J.D. Davison. 2 years now in Maine, 2 years much improved. I think his second year was a lot better than his first, but I would guess he's going to start looking around the league and see if he can get something more guaranteed out of anybody. I don't know that he's shown enough to get that, but just from watching him play, I think he's a guy that wants to, is ready for the next step, from his vantage point. I don't know if he's going to get that opportunity, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is it for him in Boston. And then as far as the two ways, Drew Peterson's one. I think that they liked him. They got him middle of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks around for next year too. They didn't have him for a full year. And then I don't know. Are you expecting Shireman on a fully guaranteed deal?
Yeah, he's gonna be on the rookie scale. So you get a 4-year deal, 2 years guaranteed, about $2 million a year. So he'll be on the active roster, and so let's say Kada is picked up as well, as you would assume he would be. That leaves 3 open roster spots. So that's another reason I don't think Watson's going to actually be on an active roster deal. That stuff always gets shaky this time of night. You're asking these guys, will you play on a 2-way deal? Would you demand a full contract, a full second-round exception in this spot? Some guys are going to say, I'm not signing. I'm not doing a 2-way deal. Some guys are going to say, all right, I'll do that. Try to prove it in camp. Maybe you get transition to an active contract if you have a huge camp. So this time of night, it's hard to imagine that one of these guys is going to get even one guaranteed year on a cap hit, especially when they're, as we talked about, absorbing so much of a luxury tax hit with each one of these guaranteed contracts that they pick up here. So I do not expect Watson to be on a full standard contract. So that leaves 3 open spots for potentially Tillman, Cornette, and O'Shea Brissett. So if you bring all those guys back, that's your roster. And Shvi Mihailuk would probably be out the door at that point, which I would expect with Shireman coming in anyway at this point.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you can get all those 3 guys back, I think you had your dream offseason. I mean, if they can retain this year's team, I think that's the dream, right? It's just unlikely that they'll be able to do that. But I think that was clear from Brad Stevens' remarks the other day was that, continuity and just keeping as much of this core locked down is his objective, right? That this group has earned that. Obviously, you have a championship team. You're not looking to make any changes, right?
Yep, and we'll throw out a few shout-outs to our sponsors here. Of course, in our free show, we mentioned them. But right now, there's a UFC free square in Prize Picks. So go over there, prizepicks.com/CLNS, and also get your 100% matching bonus up to $100. UFC nights, women's basketball going on right now. You got Clark, you got Reese. These are players that you can add to your daily fantasy team any given night this summer. Basketball, men's basketball is out of the way. Football is out of the way, but you still got a lot of sports going on this summer. So go over there and use that code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS. And game time, some baseball games going on right now. We got some Connecticut Sun action in the area, concerts, events. It's all available over at Game Time. If you use the code CLNS, you can get a $20 discount on your first purchase over there. Terms apply. Just use the code CLNS over on the Game Time app. So shout out to both of them who are continuing to sponsor our coverage of the offseason as it keeps rolling along here. Just pulling up a little stuff on Anton Watson. 14-7 with a steal and a half per game. Not a ton of blocks, but he did shoot more threes than he ever did before. I think about 50-ish this season. Shot more every season he was there. So it's not surprising to me that they're buying into a guy who can maybe shape into a volume 3-point shooter. Not a ton right now, just 51 for the season, but makes 41.2% of them. So that's probably the most important thing in his game there. And Sam Vecini also notes some good size from him here for his position. You're talking about 6'7" without shoes, so a 6'8" guy, 7-foot wingspan. Projects him a little bit more toward the 4, which is interesting. Not a monster athlete, so that might hurt him a little bit too. Again, anyone who goes in this range is going to have some issues that they're going to have to work out. And for the big one here, where's he going to fit in defensively on the floor? Is he going to guard 4s? Is he going to be able to guard at that 5 position? They've had a lot of bigs in here throughout the years. Kada, most recently, Fiondu Kabengele last year. You can just go back through all the different bigs that they brought in and out of here. So this might be the latest guy on the line who they try out in Maine, see if it works. If it doesn't, just move on. But it's a decent flyer here on a guy who's got experience, who played 5 years at Gonzaga, who shot some threes last year. The rebounding looks decent off first glance here. Again, this isn't a guy I watched a ton of. 73% at the rim, pretty good. 2.6 a game, assists a game, and a positive assist to turnover player. That's good. Again, if this is old Al Horford, you'll take that.
I know, it's funny. That was the one description that really stood out from KOC's draft board is the old Al Horford comp.
He must have known they liked him.
Because we also have talked about this extensively, but this whole discussion is around who's going to replace Al Horford, right? And we're talking about old Al Horford, right? We're not talking about prime Al Horford. That's not what they're looking for here. So, hey, anybody that's drafted at this point, you can't count on anything, but there's going to be a mix of guys in Summer League and May next year, and probably a couple of standouts. And at this point, it's really hard to gauge who that is, right? Because they're probably going to grab some guys, that are not in the mix right now at all. Maybe guys from other teams as well. Drew Peterson came in midseason for Miami, right? So, there's a lot of different directions this can take. I like the fact that they're prioritizing more experienced players, though, and they're prioritizing guys that can shoot, because I think that has been so central to the Celtics offense is just you just get guys that can shoot, right? You don't want to have any liabilities on the court.
And guys that don't have multiple major weaknesses.
Yeah.
Of course, Shireman came in with the defensive questions. You can work on that. Watson, what position is he going to play? That's not a make or break kind of question. It's definitely one that you're going to have to figure out pretty quickly at the higher level here. But he can shoot. He can rebound. He can defend. Looks like he can finish around the rim. So you're not looking at a guy that you can say, oh, man, he really struggles at the basket, or he doesn't shoot threes at all, or his defense has major, major holes, and you're not sure you can guard anybody. I mean, Tyler Smith is the name we tossed around. Real defensive questions there for a 19-year-old. And if he can never figure that out, he's never going to play. A guy like this, like we've seen some of these guys over the years. Grant Williams coming in with a little bit more experience. Desmond Bain I threw around earlier, a guy with a little bit more experience. You look at that and say there's not a lot of upside here, and it doesn't seem like there is with this guy, but if he can fill a role in the immediate future, you'll take that at 54. There's a couple different perspectives there. Swing for the fences and try to go with a guy who isn't close, or you can wait on, or pick a guy who's been around, who's played 5 years here, and is close to be ready to go, and that's what it seems like this guy is.
Yeah, and it seems, I don't know this for sure to be true, but it does seem like Brad's philosophy over the last few years is to pick the kind of like lower ceiling, but like higher, like kind of the safer picks, I guess,
High floor.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. I think that's what he's been looking for, like a Jordan Walsh type guy who's not going to be an all-star, right? But he can turn into a very serviceable role player. That seems to be the mold of the types of players that he's looking at, whether they're 19 or they're 24. But kind of more those more safe picks.
And so we approaching the end of the draft here, I would imagine. Brad Stevens is supposed to talk in about a half hour here, so we'll hear from him on a number of things, including Shireman from yesterday. We talked a lot about him earlier, heading into the draft here, but that's still one you love here. We'll see what happens with Anton Watson. 54th, I don't think anybody could have expected anything crazy here. People always go crazy in my mentions, like, why didn't they get that guy? Why didn't they trade up for him? It's the end of the second round. Half these guys aren't going to play anyway. There's going to be some hits that you look back on and say, how didn't you see that? But everything here is a crapshoot in the second round. And the fact that you came out of this draft with the 30th overall pick, who looks like he can play, who has a very bankable skill, I think that's a win overall here in this draft. And even that, you couldn't have expected too much from them there. So we'll see what these guys become. We'll see what they look like in Summer League in the immediate future here. And we'll start to make some impressions about what their roles could be.
Yeah, Summer League will be telling, and I know what will be out there, but just that ability to actually see them against other NBA players. I think, honestly, like at this point, making any real evaluations of any of these late second-round picks is really difficult. But yeah, we'll see soon what these picks have looked like and what their relationship was with the organization as well. Like, we didn't know that Shireman worked out with the Celtics in 2022 and that he was someone that was on their radar and, came back, but, he kind of shared that story today. Maybe this is a guy they've had on their radar for a long time. We'll know shortly.
Yes, we'll also know shortly some of the undrafted free agents who are coming through. So I do want to hang out in the air just a little bit longer to see if the Celtics sign anyone else once the draft actually ends here. Those always just come flying through once the 60th pick is off the board. It looks like 59 is up right now. So, or 57, couple forfeited picks as always, tampering and whatever else. knock some teams out of this draft board. But just 2 picks left. Bronny James, of course, goes to the Lakers. Kevin McCullough goes to Phoenix in a trade, but he's actually going to end up on the Knicks. So McCullough, good wing prospect with some injury concerns going back to his college days, goes at 56, and he was ranked pretty high on a lot of boards. So maybe the Knicks got a steal there. Again, a lot of guys I liked in the second round went pretty early. Tyler Smith went 33. Filipowski went 32, a guy Tatum loved, of course, and said teams are going to regret not taking. He went to Utah, so Danny getting his hands on him. And Jonathan Mogbo, who was a guy I heard a ton of hype for, entering this draft, going to Toronto, and he seems like a Toronto kind of guy there. So draft moving along, about to conclude here. Bronny, of course, going to the Lakers. We just keep tossing his name around.
Kind of wild how that worked out.
Yeah, I think that's how they guided it. There was some reporting earlier tonight that Rich Paul was telling teams, don't draft him or he's going to go to Australia and play in the NBL. So Rich Paul, Clutch, dictated this effectively, that he was going to go to LA, he was going to play with LeBron. I'd have to imagine he's probably going to be on a 2-way deal, probably going to play in the G League for the most part this year. But he's there with his dad, and this is the latest father-son connection in sports that we're going to see. We've seen quite a few over the years. Not a ton in the NBA, just because of the age difference, obviously.
Have you ever seen teammates like this?
Not quite. Right? Not quite. People can throw some examples on the chat if they can think of some. But off the top of my head,
I think this is the first time a father and son have been teammates.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out completely. There's probably been an example at least, but
you think?
I wouldn't be stunned.
We'll check after this.
I mean, you would think we would know off the top of our heads. I mean, it's something that happens in baseball.
I mean, also think about the age differential you need to have. You need to have a 39-year-old that's playing. You know?
Right. So,
it's the first ever.
First ever. All right.
Thank you.
So that's pretty impressive. That's pretty cool. Again,
fun moment in basketball history, yeah.
A lot of pressure on the son there. But I guess he's in a good position having his father nearby, being at home, being in an organization that is going to try to get him opportunities to develop and everything else there. So I guess it's for the best. I guess it's a
it'll
good
be a
thing
fun
LeBron
story
got
to
an
watch
opportunity.
regardless.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone else was ever going to pick him anyway. Just way too early in his development, way too much uncertainty about whether he's a real NBA player. And that is what you worry about here, just the pressure, the expectations for a guy who needs a lot of development.
Yeah, I thought that someone might pick him just to mess with the Lakers and see what they can get out of the Lakers if the Lakers are so intent on having him. So I'm surprised that nobody played hardball in that sense. Like, you're already not, probably this late second round pick's not going to do much for you. So you could draft Bronny and offer him up. I don't know the politics of how that would play out, but I thought that we might see a little bit of that. But they had smooth sailing. They grabbed him with the 54th, right? 54th.
Yeah, 54th coming in right after Boston. So Boston had the opportunity to do it. I just never expected them to even consider that. And they go out and get the opposite kind of prospect, right? A 5-year season guy who's 23, 24 years old. So a couple of those coming through in this draft here. Could you've gotten some more higher upside guys? You can still do that today, I'd assume. I know Ulrich Komeji from the NBA Academy there just went to...
he was just picked?
Yeah, he went to Memphis, but it's being traded to OKC. I'm not sure exactly where it's going, but he goes 57th overall. And it looks like Dallas is going to make the last pick of the NBA draft right now. So, again, just want to stay on the air a couple more minutes to see if the Celtics make any undrafted free agent signings. We're going to hear from Brad Stevens in about 20 minutes here. And it looks like the draft is now over. Ulrich Komeji going to Toronto, which makes sense. They've taken some of those kind of underdeveloped bigs over the years and try to make the most of them. Chris Boucher comes to mind there. And Ariel Horporty goes to New York. You like that? I don't know if that's right at all.
That's league-shattering news.
So the NBA draft is now over again. Celtics take Baylor Shireman, 30th overall, and Anton Watson, 54th overall. Let's see if Anton Watson has a Twitter. Let's see if he's put any
I saw that Shireman had 7,000 followers when he was drafted last night. And he has like 15,000 followers now. So just since he was drafted, something like that. So it's a good social boost if you're It's a good social boost to be drafted by the Celtics. You know, the community really rallies for you.
Yeah, and this is Gonzaga's a big time program, right? They've had some
Yeah.
major
Did you find
players
him?
through there. Yeah, here he is.
Let's monitor. You see right now he's below 4,000 followers. You'll see he's going to double shortly.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. Everyone's just going to go over there and start tweeting him like crazy. I'm sure he's going to tweet soon. A little bit on his background. I like to put that out there. Serious athletic family. His father was a 4-year starter at Idaho in basketball. His older brother played college football at Idaho. His sister played volleyball at Fresno State.
Damn.
And they grew up in Spokane, so they stayed close to home. 4-year starter at Gonzaga Prep, then 5 years at Gonzaga. So he's stayed at Washington effectively the whole time there. So Washington guy, been part of some really good teams, really good teammates. Chet Holmgren, Drew Timme. Who's the guy who went to Orlando? Jalen Suggs. So he's had a lot of big-time teammates through there at Gonzaga and some really good teams. They went 31-1 one year during his second season. Corey Kispert, of course, played there as well. So a guy with experience, won at this level, and has just been around that pretty much his whole college career so far. Again, older guy, 23, 24 years old at this point. So you wouldn't think there's a ton of upside, but can they mold them to their system? Can he develop that 3 a little bit more? Does he prove to be a 5 at 6'8"? Those are all the questions you're going to ask with him as he tries to develop a little bit more in Boston here. And again, I would imagine he's going to play on a 2-way deal. So we'll see him up in Maine. The one thing I like too, if they're going to have Walsh up there again this year, they're going to have a guard, let's say, Davison or whoever else. They're going to have Shireman up there at different points. You want that center who can kind of be the target for passers, the guy who's setting the screens, the guy who's just kind of the consistent anchor on both ends of the floor up there. I think it's always important to have a good center up in the G League. So I like that as well. So, woo.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, so the draft is concluded. What are we just waiting on to see if there's any other players the Celtics pick up right now?
Yes.
I'd imagine they're not going to be in the post-draft flurry.
Yeah, they do have a couple 2-way spots. I'm sure they're going to have to assess those.
Yeah.
Again, I'm seeing some positive reviews to Anton Watson coming through. But again, a little bit of three-point shooting here, a little bit of versatile defense, a little bit of an undersized center, and an older guy as well. So that's what they're getting here. I'm sure everybody's talking about it in the chat. We'll have more reaction here tonight. We'll hear what Brad Stevens has to say about him. But for now, I think I am going to give up on the 2-way guys, the undrafted signings coming through. So we'll have more updates on those as the night goes on here. Just want to jump on, react to the pick in real time. Not a guy I had on my radar. Looked like a guy who was in the 50, 60 range.
Old Al Horford, though. You can't complain.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool as a comparison from Kevin O'Connor there. So you can go check out his draft analysis of him. I'm sure there's some others floating around as well. And we'll get a longer look at him and do another video eventually after we see some of his tape there. But again, Baylor Shireman, Anton Watson, the 2 picks to the Celtics in this draft. More to come from Brad Stevens here in just about 15 minutes at the Auerbach Center. We'll be streaming it live as well, so you can watch it live over on the CLNS Media channel. Celtics All Access, of course, for more coverage here tonight. We did a pre-show, talked a little Porzingis, so you can go watch that as well. Noah and I talked earlier this afternoon as well. And that's it for now here. If anything crazy happens, we'll have it covered. But for now, it looks like that's going to be it for the Celtics tonight. More to come from Auerbach Center. For Noah Dalzell from Celtics Blog, I'm Bobby Manning. This has been a NBA Draft edition of the Guard Report.